test refers to the use of non-human animals in experiments that seek to control that affects the behavior of biological systems under study. Animal testing negatively affects society historically,
economically,
scientifically,
and environmentally. Animal testing has been done for over 2,500 years and is continuing to be developed in the United States today. The first forms of animal testing were done in Greece. More specifically, they were done in Kiev, Greece in 304 BC with the Greek philosopher Erasistratus. Erasistratus used these animal tests to further his knowledge in anatomy, physiology, pathology, and pharmacology. After Erasistratus developed the idea of pharmacology, new medications were being developed and tested on animals. According to animal testing and research achievements, research in cows helped create the world's first vaccine, which in turn helped to end smallpox. And with the vaccine for smallpox being so successful in the late 1700s, it opened up a new window of opportunity for more and more medications to be created and tested on animals.
However, not every animal test leads to success. According to for ethical treatments of animals, or PETA, 90% of animal tests fail.
The most catastrophic failure of animal testing was with the drug thalidomide. Thalidomide in the late 1950s and early 1960s caused an estimated of over 10,000 birth defects and thousands of fetal deaths worldwide. With these catastrophes, it emphasized the failures of animal tests, since when first tested on animals, there were no hazards shown that it could not be further developed and tested on human models.
the pharmaceutical industry has been at an all-time high and created an economic boom nationwide.
The industry produced more than $412 billion in net revenue.
With this, clearly, the United States is providing a resource to consumers and able to balance out the economic stability. However, nearly 1 in 4 Americans cannot afford their prescription drugs. With this, clearly, the economic stability is lowered because of the idea that many cannot pay for their prescription medicines on the daily basis.
Furthermore, the American family have dived deeper and deeper to economic debt, and as a country as a whole, the economic is beginning to fall.
Over time, the United States economy began to weaken and weaken. The government alone spent $16 billion annually on scientific testing.
Bill Chappelle, a well-known author and editor for the National Public Radio, delves into this issue and explains that the United States government is deep into debt with more than $22 trillion, which is the largest amount it has ever extended to.
With this, clearly the United States is spending a large sum of money annually on the testing, which is driving the stability of the economy down lower and lower.
The main focus of this graph behind me is the enormous fees that companies have received based on malpractice during experimentation.
$3.5 million was levied against the Santa Cruz Biotechnology Institution for the mistreatment of goats. Clearly, companies have been under the spotlight many times, but even with this said, many, if not all of these companies are open to this day.
To end the suffering endured by animal test subjects, there is an alternative: in vitro testing. In vitro testing refers to the testing done with live tissue cells derived from live organisms and further developed in scientific labs.
According to the Humane Society International, a simple procedure such as chromosome aberration would cost $30,000 when using animal testing. But with in vitro testing, it would cost $22,000. Clearly, in vitro testing is a cost-efficient technology which should be implemented to help the U.S. not spend as much money.
Not only is in vitro testing more cost efficient, it is also useful in scientific and medical testing.
According to George Sikorsky, a biochemist, he put in simple terms that they're using human cell-based in vitro cells to predict the toxicity of drugs, chemicals, etc. This replaces any need to harm animals or humans in testing. A more specific term or example of this is seen in a German company who created VitroCell.
They used in vitro cell tests to show the effects of cigarette smoke on human lungs, but used human lung cells by eliminating the old practice of stuffing rats into small test tubes and making them inhale toxic fumes for hours before finally dying.
According to Hope Fertilism, a medical doctor and master of public health, she says that reviews of treatments for various clinical conditions have stated that animal studies have been poorly predictive in neurology and vascular disease. This is very important because many of these problems, like Parkinson's disease and cardiac diseases, rely heavily on these treatments to be correct and accurate. Some of these diseases can even be life-altering and life-threatening, and if we do not have correct treatments for them, it can be life-fatal.
Besides the fact that testing on animals is inaccurate, there are also huge negative environmental impacts as a result of these tests. Each year, air, food, land, and farm products go increasingly poisonous, poisoned by billions of tons of toxic chemicals, most of them tested on animals.
According to PETA, more than 100 million animals are killed in U.S. laboratories yearly.
The decrease in animals such as rats, frogs, hamsters, monkeys, and more leads to extinction and negatively affects the environment. And with these decreases in population, the wildlife is drastically decreasing. When a prey goes extinct, its prey is released from that predation pressure, usually affecting the ecosystem. Okay. Typically, facilities that test on animals not only dispose of animals, but also dispose of potentially dangerous chemicals, food waste, and a variety of tools used during the testing process. When an animal is dumped in a wasteland, the sediment is transported into water surfaces. According to the EPA, Administrator Andrew Wheeler says the agency plans to reduce animal testing by 30% by 2025 and to eliminate all studies by 2035, though some still may be approved on a case-by-case basis.
Studies have shown that when animals are taken out of their natural environment, they can have negative effects on them mentally and physically.
As shown on the board, these are a few companies that do not test on animals. Cruelty-free products are generally cleaner. As, for example, these cleaner cosmetics are healthier for your skin and have a lower rate of causing breakouts and allergic reactions. And even though cruelty-free products are efficient in many ways, there are still companies that believe in animal testing and believe that it is still reliable and that testing on animals is still ethical.
This leads us into our solution, which is in vitro testing. In vitro testing has many positives, such as eliminating the use of animals altogether. You test on live tissue cells instead of animals. Also, this process provides more accurate results and costs significantly less than animal testing.
And however, even while it is not costly in itself, many constants needed to perform these in vitro testing add up significantly to the price, but they are still slightly below the cost of animal testing.
Okay, a few questions. Chloe, we'll start with you.
Sounds perfect.
What is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to exclude from your team presentation, and why?
Can you repeat the question really
Yeah,
quick?
absolutely.
Thank you.
What is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to exclude from your team presentation, and why?
One of the compelling arguments which we excluded from our team report was about the accuracy of in vitro testing. We had a few facts with the statistics talking about how reliable and accurate it was, but once we looked at it, we realized the sources were not the most credible, so we excluded them from our presentation.
Awesome, thank you. Audrey, you are next. What was the strongest counter argument to the solution or conclusion that your team identified, and why?
Wait, can you repeat it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
What is the strongest counter argument to the solution or conclusion that your team identified, and why?
The pricing of in vitro testing is slowly rising. So the argument that we made was, even though it's rising, it's technically better it's better in multiple ways, but the counter argument was that it still is costly, raising in price.
Great, thanks. Faith, you are next. In the future, what change would you make to your group norms, and how would you expect that to improve the team presentation?
I think as a whole, our group, we could probably do more as tying into each other's arguments. I mean, we did do very well. I feel like if we could push the extra step, that'd be very good. And overall, just having more communication skills would make the group more better.
And finally, Allie, describe how the content of your team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
Before group discussion, we were mainly just stating each one of our individual lens, but with the use of group discussion, we integrated those lenses, so bounce off ideas from each other to further our argument and to come to a solution.